Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight interview series. Today it is my pleasure to have David Kennedy with me, all the way from Bangor, that's Bangor, Northern Ireland. And David is the owner of David Kennedy Recruitment, worldwide recruitment specialist company. David, delighted you could join us. How are you today?
Thanks, Richard. I'm very good, thank you. It's sunny outside, so it's a good start.
It's a good start. Like, why don't you share with us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for?
Sure. So David Kennedy, as you mentioned, I have 23 years in recruitment. I was working out this morning, which is quite scary. So started off as a young 18-year-old in Melbourne, Australia, and then made my way back to Northern Ireland in 2007, and I've been working in recruitment ever since 2003. DKR, David Kennedy Recruitment Limited, was launched in October 18, Richard, with one client from home in Bangor, and we're still working in Bangor, but now we recruit across more than 35 countries was the count this week.
Fantastic.
So it's incredibly busy and very international.
Fantastic. And do you target a specific sector or are you broad spectrum?
Yeah, a lot of it's multilingual. So if you come across these sort of weird and wacky languages, that's probably something we'll jump on. I don't speak a language myself, but having said that, the business world speaks very good English these days. So whether we're dealing with a company in Dubai or Germany or France, we're dealing with a client in English, and then my recruiters are all potentially speaking those different languages. So I would say that would be 80% of the business would be language recruitment. And then in the background, over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, we found different ways due to COVID and different things going on to go different directions to try and grow it. So we're a little bit of a not a one-stop shop, but very specialist in international stuff. We do not do any stuff in the UK since Brexit's happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. So who is an ideal client for you, David?
Someone who pays the bills on time, Richard. Recruitment, generally speaking, it's there's a lot more than just sending CVs and getting people job offers, unfortunately. So for me, a client that's going to be a long-term relationship builder who can then use us as a partner. I don't want to be used as a CV sending service. So if we can make a genuine impact, that's a potential client for us. If they're in a nice place in the world or something, it makes it easier. You get to speak to people in Switzerland this morning. I was speaking to a client potentially looking to use our services, right through to a client in Vietnam last week. So if we can then have that sort of ability to deliver and then confident to go and say yes, it needs to be something I would feel comfortable doing. So yeah, someone who pays the bills on time and communicative, which is very important in recruitment.
Sure. Excellent. So what's been your biggest learning since you've been a business owner yourself?
Not getting carried away. So when I started in 2018, I had a client and it was all exciting. It was the first client. You were out doing maybe arty media posts about finding certain people, and I think it was autumn at the time. So we had like autumn leaves and a description and some forest or something. It was quite weird. But as a business owner, it's important to know what's going to grow our business, and we're not just looking for a short term or a quick fix, or we're always looking for that sort of business that we can grow with, and particularly when it's busy, to be looking for the next thing. And when I wasn't running my own company, you're sort of all over the place and you're distracted by certain clients and different companies and different jobs. So I definitely think it's about focusing on things that are going to close, and not competing with multiple agencies across the world for the same job because it just doesn't make sense. So
Yes.
being decisive and being really clear on what we're looking for is super important for me.
Very good. Great shares, David. Is this something that you always wanted to do from when you were a kid, or is this something that I guess you drifted into as some people do, and then you spent a number of years in it and ended up going out on your own?
Unfortunately, it's going to be the cliche answer. No, you don't plan to go into recruitment. I was listening to one of your other interviewees the other day, and it's the same for him. Look, I think recruitment's not the sort of thing you can train or qualify for. It's something you fall into. I listened to a lot of podcasts, Richard, and can't remember the girl's name I was listening to, but as being part of Ireland or Northern Ireland, we're on an island. We're always traveling somewhere.
Yeah,
So for me to go and travel and explore different cultures and adventures was always important for me, even when I was younger. I've been to all four corners of the globe, and for me, when I get to speak to those businesses, but do it from a remote location, it sort of encompasses everything I enjoy doing. Um, but every day you ask the same question to recruiters, and they'll probably tell you, yeah, it's my dream job. But the fact that you're actually changing lives, but also making a huge impact, it is quite rewarding. But comes with its general stresses of life, to be honest with you.
sure, sure. No, as a keen traveler myself, I get it. I get
Yeah,
that traveling itchy feet, that bug to go,
very
and
much so.
yeah, like you say, living on an island where some days you get lovely sun like you're describing, other days you have all four seasons in the same day. It's nice to
100%.
visit those other parts of the world, isn't it?
It is. It is. Look, when I go on a business trip, I try to find something which is going to interest me there. So if it's going to be hot and sunny, if I can go to a football match and also see a client or something, that for me is my perfect trip.
That's a
So
per
there's actually a reason to go
perfect
to
win.
somewhere. And yeah, absolutely.
Very, very good. So, what has been the biggest issue you've overcome? And I don't mind if you refer to COVID. Lots of people, you know, uh, there's been a long time since the previous pandemic, and nobody in our age group had experienced one before.
Yeah.
So, COVID is very often at the front of their mind, but there maybe are some other big issues you've overcome.
Probably something similar, to be honest with you. I mean, again, I'm listening to all these podcasts and people are still talking about the pandemic is in, different industries are being affected by it. One day, Richard, whenever lockdown happened, all of my clients stopped recruiting immediately. And it was sort of, that was the point that really made my business grow because I could have sat still or, you know, gone into the garden for 2 months and enjoyed do you remember the weather we had for that 2 months? Um, I was a bit of a crazy person. I was doing 2 hit intervals a day and on the bike every day. So I was always trying to keep busy. And I found a new industry in Cyprus at the time, which were actually recruiting right throughout the pandemic. And thanks to that one client, that has opened the doors to a massive industry, which is Forex and crypto. So that probably forms around 25% of our business today, even, which has opened up different doors for us. So I think that was a massive change because a lot of contacts I'd made over the last couple of years and starting to go back into full-time employment, they folded their agencies. A lot of people were getting furlough. The bigger agencies were suffering because they couldn't pay the salary, so they were going down and a lot of people then fell out of the recruitment world, which benefited us because whenever everything was up and running again, there was a lack of good sort of agencies out there to support that growth.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah.
still seeing that, but we've built those relationships over the hard times. And, hopefully we're over those hard times, but I'm sure there's something else around the corner for us. But just being able to say, look, we've actually grown is, it's quite satisfying given the way the world was at one point.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. You can hardly believe that it's 4 years ago. It's just about this time
Incredible.
4 years ago. And
Incredible, just even keeping in contact with people going into, we did a lot of relocating at some point during that period, and people had to go into 2 weeks isolation in a different country. So if they were on the ratings they had,
yeah, yeah,
I can't remember the colors they were, but you go into an amber zone, whatever it was, and you have to spend 2 weeks and you're constantly trying to engage with, are you okay? Have you done your COVID test? Are you all set for your flight next week if you get the all go, the client, so it was more about managing expectations as well,
sure.
as opposed to just getting the person in. It was more about people's well-being, most importantly, and then their flights cancelled and so on. So that was a really challenging time, but it was also sink or swim as well. And hopefully we swam away from it.
But it's fantastic that that was actually what could have been a big challenge and a big threat became a big opportunity for you and pushed you
Yeah,
forward, and you've seen growth from it. So
massively.
well done, and
Thank
every
you.
success going forwards.
Thank you.
Um, what's the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself personally?
Gosh, Not trusting everybody, Richard. So I'm a very trusting person, and when you run a business, everybody wants a piece of it. So our model's very different to any other agency out there. There's maybe two agencies in mainland Europe doing it, but for the sheer scale of what we're doing, I need people to buy into what we're doing. I need that work ethic. I need that sort of adrenaline rush. I need that experience of dealing with recruitment in general. And at the start, I was quite trustworthy of people and giving everybody an opportunity. And then you really end up going and doing the job yourself 50 times, 60 times over. So I was trying to get the right person in. So a recruitment company finding their own recruiters, that's always been the biggest challenge. You ask any agency out there, they can recruit for any industry in the world. But when it goes direct, you're almost being overly fussy, because if you would you hire that person, would you pay for that person's services, etc. So I think nowadays I'm a little bit more cautious of what we do and how we bring on people. Um, but it's right across the globe we're bringing in people. We even had a chap start from Thailand last week as a freelancer. And the guy's taking time out of his day on the way home to sit in Bangkok in some internet cafe to have an hour conversation with you. And sometimes you don't register how much effort people go to, but that's what I want. I want people to show us that they want to work with us.
Yes.
And then I can go out and explore the clients and tell them what we can deliver and so on. But without those people out there, the business is nothing, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So tell me this. Is there anybody who inspires you in business? Was there somebody that you looked up to, or uh, you know, was there a motivating thing behind going into business for yourself that came from somebody else who's an inspiration?
Well, do you know what? I'll tell you a funny story. So, and I've told this story about 1,000 times to people I speak to about coming on board as a recruiter. My wife was walking our little baby on the beach at Ballyhome, and every day she would send me a picture of her in the pram and out in the sunshine. I thought, I want a part of that. I'm sitting in Belfast doing 70, 80 hours a week. I want to be doing that. So for me, my biggest motivation was that.
Yeah.
Um, when I take it outside the family, I get inspired listening to podcasts, Richard, as I mentioned to you,
Yeah.
whether it be, there was a chap this morning, actually, his name's Tom Kerridge. He's a chef and he runs his own hospitality businesses. And I would literally go and do a workout, whatever it is, and just be listening. And some of the stuff that you're listening to is quite powerful.
Yeah.
So no matter how many years you've done something for, I'm always trying to take bits and pieces from other people's experiences, and then hopefully then it makes me a better person, better leader, better owner. So there's no one in particular person, but I just take motivation from people's success stories. I'm big into sport as well, so competitiveness and winning and being part of something, and big Liverpool supporter. Not sure how that's going to go down, but something that actually I can see passion in, and
Yeah.
I am very passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so not there's no one person.
Very good. And do you dip into any specific books? Some people use books where they just read fiction and get away from. Other people read it for learning and business and studying and
I'm not a big reader. I'm more a listener or a watcher.
yeah.
Um, I listen to the only sort of my wife will make fun of me here, but I listened to Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's book a couple of years ago during COVID, and every day I was just out having a chuckle to it. It made me laugh. I also used part of his speech for a best man speech I had to do.
Mhm.
Um, so I was sort of taking mental notes.
Yeah.
I have a very small and short attention span when I'm reading. So if I can watch something or listen to something, I am much more motivated. But yeah, listening to those sort of things or podcasts would be more me, to be honest.
Very good. Good. And what do what does the future hold for DKR and David yourself, wife and family, and what do you see as the biggest challenges going forwards, apart from the teenage years?
Global domination, Richard. I mean, I want to strive. We had a conversation about a year ago, and I was asked, when are you going to retire? And I'll never retire. I am the sort of person who can never sit at peace. So for the future of the business, I would like to keep growing it, but I want to become more um sustainable in terms of I give a talk a couple of weeks ago to the team, and I was giving them analysis from the recruitment world in general in the UK and Ireland. And I want to become that sort of consultancy that converts a lot more because the quality is high. I don't want to be sending people under my name and then getting the feedback which is negative, they're not responsive, because that is the world of people in recruitment. You're generally chasing people for answers. So I'd like to become, we're almost at 1 million gross profit this year, our last tax year, sorry, which is our 5th year. So the future is probably double or triple that, all being well. And for the family, have more time for them. I brought the most amazing person on to work with me 3 years ago, who was a client before. Took us 2 years working together to really figure out what the future held in that relationship. And that person's transformed the business in terms of process wise, structurally wise, GDPR wise, just how it's actually formed and developed. So if I could get another 2 or 3 of those people in the business, I can see it growing massively. But I think I have to clone them. Honestly, I have to find some sort of cloning factory because these people do not exist. I'm sorry, but it's very hard to find people that you can just put all your trust into.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge, trying to find people like that. So if they're out there, I'd love to meet them.
Contact David. You know who you
Absolutely, absolutely.
are. Good. So, David, what would you say to anyone thinking of going into business for themselves?
Well, a big thing for me was stability. So when I was younger, I never thought I could do something myself. I was doing it.
Yeah.
And again, based on this chap, Tom Courage, it was like, if you're going to do something which is 60, 70, 80 hours a week, why not do it for yourself? But make sure there's a market there. So when I started, big thing for me, when I started, I thought I needed the fancy websites, the fancy logos, the graphics, the limited company. I didn't. I needed to become a sole trader at the beginning just to get things up and running. But the most important thing for any business is to have customers. And regardless of how it looks at the start, that will come. So if anybody's starting, I really recommend they focus on the operational side of things and not just the how it looks to the outside naked eye.
Yes.
And any business, I would recommend that it's more about having the customer base. And if you can deliver, that's the most important thing. Everything else can follow.
Excellent advice. Excellent. So, sort of as we wrap up, if you could roll back the clock, turn back time.
Love to.
And I know this wouldn't be very many years for you, but what advice would you give yourself as an 18-year-old?
Gosh. Look, I heard something recently. People don't pick what they want to do for the rest of their life until they're at least 32. Um, so when I was 18, I went traveling. I did what I wanted to do. I played cricket in Australia. I lived a really good life at a young age. I didn't have any stress from work. And when I came back, I found myself in terms of into the recruitment world, and I've built on that. Maybe didn't take it as seriously in the first few years, but when you see a career path in front of you, and this wasn't something someone was training me or showing me, it's really been based on pure passion and doing something which I can actually do to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So I think enjoy your younger years because as you know yourself, Richard, it doesn't last forever. And when you have a family, your time is really limited, absolutely. And if you're going to start something, make sure you have the time and energy to do it because that's the biggest thing. Your work ethic has to be 100%, otherwise it's never going to work, unfortunately.
Brilliant. Look, David, been a joy to have you on the Spotlight series. Really interesting learnings from you. And obviously with that Bradley background, it has been a delight.
Thank you.
And
My blonde flowing locks.
yes, yeah. And look, every success going forward. Great to
Thank
hear
you.
of yet another Northern Ireland success story. And we wish you all the very best. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.